Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're embarking on, a fascinating and pretty crucial exploration. We're diving into a topic that often sparks deep curiosity and, let's be honest, maybe a bit of apprehension too. We're talking about prophecies and spiritual preparedness for really challenging times, specifically around concepts like nuclear war, World War III, and the spiritual side of Armageddon. Our source material for this deep dive comes from the profound teachings of Sheikh Nurjan Miramati. And these teachings offer a truly unique spiritual perspective on what might be coming and, maybe more crucially, how we can actually navigate it. It's a perspective that goes beyond the conventional ways of preparing.
Indeed. Our mission today is really to unpack these powerful insights, especially for those of you who are drawn to spiritual paths. Maybe you're cultivating inner resilience in what feels like a pretty uncertain world. We'll explore how, according to these teachings, the traditional methods of protection, they might just not be enough. Instead, a deeply spiritual approach becomes paramount. One rooted in love, unwavering faith, and understanding unseen support. That's key for facing these immense challenges.
Okay, let's unpack this dire outlook first, because the Sheikh doesn't really mince words here. He speaks directly to the idea of Armageddon already being opened. What does he actually mean by this, and what's the implication for how we prepare, or maybe how we should be preparing?
Yeah, what's fascinating here is the acknowledgement that these events, they aren't some distant future thing. In his view, they're already unfolding. He specifically mentions Bani Asfar, often interpreted in Islamic eschatology, as a Western or European power block. Yeah. And he highlights conflicts that once they start become difficult to put down. He emphasizes the hour is near and the oceans of difficulty immense. So this isn't just a warning. It feels more like a statement about where we are right now, spiritually and energetically.
Right.
And this raises a really important question for all of us, doesn't it? If these are the coming realities, what kind of shelter actually works? The Sheikh is very clear, quite unequivocal actually. He says, underground bunker, remote shelter, etc. won't help for what's coming. He goes on to say, there is no place to hide, run, or seek shelter other than Allah's almighty rahmah and mercy.
Wow.
So that fundamentally shifts our whole understanding, doesn't it? From physical security to divine protection. It tells us our usual ideas of safety are just insufficient for what's spiritually being unleashed.
So, okay, this isn't about stocking supplies or building a physical bunker then. What does preparedness really look like from this spiritual viewpoint? How do we cultivate this Ramah, this divine mercy?
Exactly. The preparedness he's talking about is almost entirely spiritual. Now, he does acknowledge, the practical side, having supplies for daily life, that's important. But the emphasis is overwhelmingly on the internal cultivation. It's about deep faith, practicing charity, selfless service, striving for perfection in your deeds, even small ones. And he highlights that the greatest mercy and rahmah of Allah Almighty is in the love of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him. Mm-hmm. That love is presented as the ultimate protection, the very essence of divine mercy that can just envelop a seeker. It's less about doing more, maybe, and more about being more, deeply rooted in spiritual principles.
And he also mentions specific Sunnah items for protection. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah.
Especially for listeners who might be exploring different spiritual traditions that aren't familiar with the term.
Certainly. So the Sheikh advises wearing or having certain Sunnah items. Sunnah meaning items or practices that follow the tradition, the way of Prophet Muhammad. Peace and blessing be upon him. And these aren't just symbolic objects. He teaches they're powerful, energetic conduits, channels for spiritual support and protection. For instance, he advises carrying a cane, an asa. Yeah. He describes how the cane, like Prophet Moses' Nabi Musa's, peace be upon him, it possesses its own spiritual reality. It doesn't need human instruction to act. It knows how to channel divine will.
Like the story of the serpent.
Exactly. Remember how Nabi Musa's cane transformed without his conscious command? It's that kind of spiritual power being discussed.
Okay.
And similarly, he talks about a ring, specifically one connected to the spiritual lineage of Imam Ali, peace be upon him, who was a close companion and son-in-law of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him. Such a ring, he explains, holds immense spiritual power, symbolizing divine control over earthly and heavenly realms. And beyond these physical items, he emphasizes having many salawat. Yes. Praises and blessings upon Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him. These are considered like a powerful spiritual currency, opening doors to divine grace.
Right.
And he further elaborates on this idea of spiritual armor. He mentions tawizes, protective prayers or invocations, often written and worn, maybe sewn into clothing. He likens our daily clothes to spiritual chainmail, transforming them into armor for a spiritual battlefield where we're constantly combating immense negative energies and unseen forces.
So it's not about physical defense at all then?
No, it's about consciously imbuing your everyday self, your attire, with spiritual defense, activating an inner shield against the energetic onslaught of these times.
Okay, this is what gets really interesting, I think, for anyone on a spiritual path. Sheikh Nurjan Mehrmadi stresses the heart over the intellect, even when facing these huge logical challenges. How does one lean into the heart? Especially when our brains are just wired to analyze, predict danger, you know?
Yeah, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, the Sheikh repeatedly emphasizes that Allah Almighty works in mysterious ways, which means, as he puts it, never in a logical way, never will you think through your brain something, but through your heart. He suggests the true reward, the true path to understanding, is for the one who acts upon their heart, not their intellect. He even jokes a bit, saying if intellect was the only reward, humans would look like big aliens with a head this big.
Right.
Implying that relying too much on the brain can distort our true spiritual form, our potential.
Interesting analogy.
It is. And he uses another one, a beautiful one, of a bird. A bird's brain, he notes, is tiny. Yet, it never occurred to the bird that he can't fly, he just has a big heart and he jumps and goes 10,000 feet in the air. Humans, with our big brain, often lose that ability to fly spiritually. Our heads get too big, our hearts too small.
So the call is?
The call is clear. Lose your head and increase the size of your heart and you fly like you can't imagine. Now, this isn't about ditching logic completely, of course, but it's about cultivating intuition, empathy, and a profound trust in that inner knowing. Something that transcends pure analysis. Especially in a world that just prizes intellect above almost everything else, it's about opening up to a deeper way of seeing reality.
So it's about a deep, unwavering belief, a kind of surrender to trust, even if it totally defies our rational mind.
Precisely. And he offers a powerful anecdote to illustrate this point. He talks about a saint who would sell little sticks, just small pieces of wood, and he'd tell people they were houses in paradise.
Houses in paradise, little sticks.
Little sticks, and people with soft, open hearts. Despite what their intellect must have been screaming, they chose to believe in the promise. And as the Sheikh relates, Allah Almighty never disappoints his real servants. The story isn't really about the literal sticks, obviously. It vividly shows how true spiritual guides, sheikhs, often instigate an act of faith. It's a test, a way to cultivate belief. If you believe it will happen, if your heart truly accepts it, Allah Almighty will make it so. The doubt, he points out, that's in our limited perception, not in the divine plan or capacity. It's profound teaching on belief manifesting reality.
And he connects this to love, particularly how love enables this kind of spiritual support, or madad. How does love act as that catalyst for unseen help?
Yes, he explains it beautifully. Just like children naturally follow and love their parents, right? They don't need an intellectual breakdown of why. Spiritual connection and support madad, which is divine assistance channeled through spiritual guides, it's rooted in that same pure love. This deep love for Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, and for those who represent his teachings. It creates a kathar within the heart. It's a term from the Holy Quran, often translated as a fountain of abundance, spiritual plenitude. This inner kathar leads to a deep yearning, an unbreakable spiritual connection, like a magnetic pull towards higher realities, powered by sincere love.
Oh, right.
And this intense love, this devotion, it eventually leads to a state of fana.
Oh, no.
Yeah, a profound spiritual concept. It means the annihilation, the dissolving of the ego, the self, in divine love. In this state, he explains, the more you can vanish, then the more the appearance of the sheikh can take place. Not physically, but spiritually. The seeker becomes dressed from their hearing, from their seeing, from their knowledges. Basically, their spiritual senses and understanding get elevated, informed by the guide's divine wisdom.
So deep connection.
Ultimately, yes, leading to a direct spiritual connection with Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him. It echoes that profound holy hadith, I become the eyes in which you see, the ears in which you hear, signifying a complete spiritual immersion. Your individual desires fade, allowing a pure alignment with the divine will, becoming a vessel, really.
Okay, this next part. This really fascinates me, because it speaks to a completely different dimension of protection, especially when you think about something as devastating as nuclear war. Sheikh Nurjan Mehrmadi talks about help from the Jin World. For listeners who aren't familiar, how does he describe this unseen realm and its role?
Right. It's truly fascinating, the direct mention of the Jin World. In Islamic belief, Jinn are intelligent, unseen beings, created from smokeless fire. They exist alongside us. The Sheikh explains that a benevolent aspect of this Jin world has their own understanding of how to protect people from these types of events. Nuclear events, catastrophes. He elaborates that during these profound global challenges, benevolent Jin will be specifically dispatched. Sent.
Yeah.
To those whom written for them to be with Sayyidina Mahdi, peace and blessing be upon him.
Sayyidina Mahdi, the awaited figure.
Yes, the revered eschatological figure in Islam, believed to emerge at the end of times to restore justice. So these unseen helpers are described as already at work, divinely appointed to safeguard certain individuals.
Incredible. And how does this protection actually manifest? What's the mechanism? You mentioned breathing.
Yes, it's very unique, very profound. The Sheikh describes that when these benevolent jinn are dispatched, they will begin to surround them and teach them to take a deep breath, a conscious breath. And as these individuals take that breath, they'll enter into a shield of energy from their kingdom.
An energy shield.
Not a metaphor. Presented as a literal energetic defense, this powerful shield covers them. And when combined with prostration, sujud, that act of kneeling, forehead to the ground in prayer, ultimate humility,
Right.
it fully shields them by Izzatullah, by Allah's almighty might and magnificence from the devastating effects. Explosions, atrocities. Imagine an invisible vibrational shield literally repelling destruction.
Hard to even conceptualize.
It is. And he reinforces this with a powerful verse from the Holy Quran. Surah Tawbah, verse 51. كُلًّا يُصِيبَنَا إِلَّا مَا كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَنَا هُوَ مَا لَنَا وَعَلَى اللَّهِ فَلْيَتَوَكَّلِ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ.
And the meaning?
It translates to, roughly, nothing. For verily nothing will happen to the believers not written in the book of Allah Almighty, and have the believers put their faith and trust in Allah Almighty. The Shaykh explains this specific verse will be powerfully activated for Sayyidina Mahdi, peace and blessing be upon him, to safeguard those meant to be with him. It really underscores the belief that ultimately everything unfolds according to a divine plan, and trusting that plan is the ultimate protection.
So even amidst what looks like total chaos or, shaitan plans, as he says, Allah's almighty plan is much better and predominant, already planned, encompassed all plans. That's a powerful statement of divine control.
Absolutely. That's the core message, isn't it? The spiritual dimension is always superior, always preordained, no matter how complex or destructive any opposing plans seem. The divine plan of Allah Almighty is encompassing, perfect, and ultimately victorious, which offers immense solace, really, and a framework for understanding even the toughest events. Redirects our focus from the chaos to the divine order underneath.
Now, this idea of protection, it isn't just abstract faith. The Sheikh connects it to very tangible concepts. Things like energy and vibration, which many listeners exploring New Age spiritual ideas might find very relatable. How does Islam, through these teachings, align with energy concepts?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's where this ancient wisdom kind of meets modern understanding, or maybe precedes it. The Sheikh explains, if we understand Islam through energy, then we have the common denominator. He talks about the historical use of copper in buildings centuries ago for capturing free energy from the atmosphere. He describes these structures as acting like transducers, drawing in and converting ambient energy.
Wow, like ancient technology.
He suggests it was an ancient science, yeah. A deep understanding of energy mechanics that maybe got suppressed or hidden later on. It suggests what we think is new in energy science might have very old roots in spiritual traditions.
Interesting.
And he also points out how traditional prayer halls, cathedrals, and especially masjids with their minarets, they weren't just buildings. They were designed to bring a tremendous amount of energy into an atmosphere, facilitating healing by energy, by sound, by vibration.
Healing through architecture and sound.
Exactly. He asserts that everything from Islam is about the energy, not just rituals, but powerful energetic practices. And crucially, he says Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, gave us teachings about energy that are becoming especially relevant in the last days because of the immense negative energies entering the world. He positions Islam as holding fundamental answers to these energetic shifts, maybe answers that modern science hasn't fully grasped or has even kept hidden.
So practices like the Azaz-Amer, the call to prayer, or reciting the Holy Quran, they aren't just religious rituals, they're essentially energetic practices,
right,
influencing our environment, our well-being.
Exactly. They're described as profound sound and vibration practices. When understood and done correctly, they can crush negative energies and they can magnify positive energies and healing states. Think of how sound frequencies affect physical matter, like cymatics. These spiritual sounds are described as having a similar but much more powerful effect on unseen energies. He even recommends physical things like copper and silver bracelets for healing and energy on the body, acknowledging their traditional use in balancing personal energy fields.
Right, many traditions use those.
They do, and he further advises that in these. He calls it an abode of energies and frequencies that are now cooking and cooking people's brains and minds.
That's a vivid description of modern life.
Isn't it? He says, in this environment, our everyday clothing should be like armor, meaning imbue your clothes with ta'weezes, those spiritual prayers for protection, and constantly invoke praises, the salawat, upon Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him. But he clarifies, these aren't just trinkets you wear passively. You have to treat them with deep reverence. It's about the conscious intention, the spiritual connection behind wearing them, as a continuous active spiritual defense against negative energies trying to influence our minds and hearts.
Wow. Okay, this has been an incredibly insightful deep dive. Truly, we've explored such a profound spiritual perspective on facing these immense challenges, not through conventional means, but through an activated heart, unwavering faith, and understanding these unseen energies and support systems all around us.
It really does encourage us to shift focus, doesn't it? From the outward material defenses to cultivating that inner spiritual shield, building a connection that transcends physical barriers, and understanding that the greatest protection really lies in divine mercy and love. Especially navigating these complex, energetically charged times, it's a call to deep inner transformation.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener? Maybe the next time you hear news of global tensions or just feel the weight of overwhelming circumstances, you might consider, how would you really prepare if your only shelter was the expanse of your heart and the love you've cultivated within it? What spiritual armor are you building today? Not just for the body, but for your soul.
That's a truly provocative thought to sit with. This understanding suggests that real resilience facing whatever is coming. It isn't about avoiding the storm, it's about becoming unshakable within it. Through deep spiritual means, through connection, realizing that ultimate protection lies within and, well, beyond the physical world we see.